Okay. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are today. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ani Shindi. I'm a Customer Success Manager, part of the APAC team at Sydney. I've been at Smartsheet for about 3 years now. I have used the tool for a little bit longer than that. And today webinar, we're going to cover the Project Management Office case study. Just before we get into the product, it's just a legal slide that covers that whatever I might present today may be forward-looking information, and there may be confidential information in there. It's just something to consider. Today on the webinar, I'm going to be the host. We've got Dave in the background who's going to be the guest speaker as well as helping with the Q&A. We've got Sherry and Aaron in the background as well, who are going to also be helping with the Q&A. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You have 3 options at the bottom there. You can have a chat and let us know what you think about through the chat function. If you would like to speak at any time during the webinar, feel free to raise your hand as well, and we will unmute you and you can have a chance to talk. And also, if you have questions about everything or about anything that we present to you today, feel free to use the Q&A section there, and our team will get back to you promptly. So today's agenda, first I'll talk to you about a bit of an introduction about Smartsheet, who we are, what we do, how long we've been around for. Then we'll talk about unlicensed versus a licensed user. So what are the benefits, what are the differences? We'll go into an understanding of how sheets, reports, and dashboards compile into a Smartsheet solution and how you'll be using them throughout your processes. And then I'll take you straight into Smartsheet, which then will cover the Project Management Office discussion. And at the end, you'll have time. We will answer some Q&A and you'll have time to ask questions as well. Okay, so who we are. Smartsheet has been around for 17 years now. We've grown to more than 2,000 employees across the globe. We are New York Stock Exchange listed as well. We do collaborate and work with a lot of other companies. There's a lot of big logos, as you can see on the right corner there, Alaxia, Netflix, so forth. And we are listed where 90% of Fortune 100 companies or more actually use Smartsheet for their daily works. Who we integrate with? Smartsheet integrates with a large variety of cloud-based platforms. So if you're using solutions around, say, BI, data visualization, business apps, or data storage, if you see any of your apps on here, and if you think that Smartsheet is something that you need to integrate with one of these tools, well, we have that option, either native or you can speak to your account team about getting that sort of introduction. If you have any questions around integration, please ask in the Q&A. What we solve. So Smartsheet today we'll specifically be looking at the Project Management Office or Project Management use case, but Smartsheet is not limited just to the project management space. As you can see, we cover a large variety of different fields, whether it's engineering, IT, HR, finance, and it's really covered through the setup, the way you set Smartsheet up. A licensed user versus a non-licensed user. Now, it's important to understand the difference because you will have different capabilities within the tool. A licensed user is someone who's able to create new objects in Smartsheet. So if there is a new sheet, a new report, a dashboard, or even changing the structure of current sheets or current systems, adding automations, adding different ways of capturing information. So a lot around the architecture and building of the system, right? Smartsheet doesn't require you to have a license to interact with it. So as an unlicensed user, you have the ability to edit anything that you've been shared to, as long as you have that permission. You have the ability to view and participate in conversations and attachments and be part of that collaboration process with your team without having to build anything. If you do require content that is not available for you without a license, you can always reach out to a licensed user and get that shared out to you. This page. So the basic building blocks, I just want to cover this at a high level before we go into the system. It's important to understand the way you build anything in Smartsheet or where you travel through Smartsheet journey is you start with the sheets. The sheets is where you will have all your data. It'll have your columns, it'll have your different data, cells of data. The sheet might also have different ways of collecting information through forms or directly in the sheet, as well as automations. But all of that information is then collated in reports and presented in dashboards. So the most important thing to understand at this point is that you must have the foundation of this pyramid starts with the sheets and it rolls up to reports and then dashboards. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And what you should be able to see on your screen there is the Smartsheet homepage. For anyone that's a new user and never used a tool before, this page is simply accessible by just typing in www.smartsheet.com. If you've never logged in before, you might be requested to set a password. You'll receive an email to activate your account, and from there on, you should see a page that looks something like this. This is the homepage. So on the left-hand side, I've got a few requests that shows me the different types of requests that I'm tagged to. And on the right-hand side, these are pages that are suggested to me. So as I use Smartsheet more, this populates more and more. The top right corner is a create button. It's a simple way to create new objects. So again, if you have a license, you have the ability to create different things, some of the things that we mentioned before. So I'm going to take you over to the left-hand side of the page. We're going to go through these buttons. So the top left corner, the home page, home button, an easy way to get back to this home page. The next button down is the notifications. The notifications is a section where things that you may be tagged to, or if you're part of an approval process, or if you're responsible for any of the data, you may see notifications come up on here. So it's an easy way rather than checking your emails. The next button down, and probably the button that you will be using the most when you use Smartsheet, is the Browse section. The Browse section, if you're a new user, will consist of just the Sheets folder and a Workspaces tab. The key difference between Sheets and Workspaces is one place is the Sheets is a place where you could store items that are not shared to a specific user group, so they're personalized items that you're not sharing out. And then Workspaces is a place where you can create specific workspaces, whether it's names of projects, names of teams, more or less a place for you to collaborate different items together. So I have a workspace here called My Demos, which I've created just by right-clicking on the heading. And then in here, I can store items, which then I share to my colleagues. So it's a place for you to collaborate. So continuing with the buttons, we've got the recents, but self-explanatory. Any new thing that you've recently visited will come up here, but also you have the ability to pin something. So if it's important, pin it, come back to it, and it's just a bit easier for you to use. The button underneath is similar. So in Smartsheet, when you create an item, so if I were to create a grid and leave it in here, I have the ability to favorite it. And if I were to see that in the stars, it would come up as a new sheet. So it's a favorite section. We're going to skip over the work apps. The work apps is a premium function, and it's outside the discussion of today. So we're going to go straight to the Solution Center. Now, before we get into the PMO discussion, I just want to talk a second about what the Solution Center is. The Solution Center is a place where you can gather or download, if you're a licensed user, pre-built solutions based off the different fields or the use cases that we showed before in the presentation. You know, as you can see on the left-hand side, we have different fields here. So you've got IT, you've got project management, HR, and also a simple search function. So if you can't find, if this is not right for you and you want to search something, feel free to just type it directly in there. Now, what you see in the middle are the templates and the template sets. So the blue is simply one sheet, right? Solving one problem. So for example, this one says project budget, it would just be one sheet. But the green here is a consolidation or combined assets of sheets, reports, and dashboards. So before we mentioned you need all three, and that's what this consists of. So today we're going to type into the search bar PMO. And the template set that we're going to download today is the Project Management Office. So you click on that and then click on Learn More. There is a video if you want to watch it, but it's also accessible on the next page. So when you click Learn More, a new tab opens up. And this tab is a dashboard that's got the button to download what you need to download, but also more information. So we'll come back to the download button. I'm just going to quickly take us to the diagram in the middle of the page. I encourage anyone who goes through the Solution Center to take a look at this diagram before you go ahead and download it, because it's an easy way to understand what you're going to use. This is an example architecture of what a simple PMO in Smartsheet would look like. Okay, so starting from the left-hand side, there's a place for you to intake your projects. So in the project management office, there's initially approvals of different project ideas. Once they're approved, then you're allowed to then manage that project, or there's funding for that project. So once a project is approved in the intake, you can then this solution allows you to load that project into different project sheets. So the project sheets in this template include project plan. There's a few reports, which is the orange, and then there's a project level dashboard. Okay, this is templatized for one project. This also has a metadata sheet, which is a bit more advanced Smartsheet, but basically this metadata sheet allows you to integrate a lot of this data into the dashboard. Okay, in this solution, it's asking you to save as a new for every new project. That's how you scale this out for multiple projects, right? So as your new projects come in the intake, you would save this folder as new, and that's your new project toolkit for that project. Now, the last part of the PMO setup is that all of those projects, maybe you'll have 20, 30, 50 one day, they will all roll up in the portfolio metrics, and all of this is editable. So if you've got specific metrics to be calculated, you can put them in there, and they will then be displayed on the PMO level dashboard. So we're going to scroll up and click download. Take a second. And what you'll notice is when you download anything from the Solution Center, the plus sign, it's going to initially sit within your sheets, an unshared space. Okay. I'm actually going to take this template set that I've just downloaded and drop it into my demos workspace, just to show you how you share things. And now if I go into my demos, as you can see, that template set is there. I might just need to refresh my page. And there it is. Okay, in my demos, and there's a template set folder. Now, the diagram that we just saw before, it said that the process of this PMO started with the project intake. So we'll start with the intake sheet. Okay. So when you start off your project, initially you'll need to capture some project level information. This intake sheet has some high level fields already made for you, things like high level project information, like project manager, who the sponsor is, when the project's going to start, and maybe even some metrics regarding the project health and project status. It's also important to notice it's got a project ID. So as your project list loads, there's a way to differentiate it without just through a project ID. The data that's captured in the project intake comes through a form. So if you toggle to the top left corner, there's two buttons there. You can either create a form, but in this template set, there's already a form. So we're going to click on Manage Form. And as you can see, there's a project intake form. We're going to go ahead and just click on that and click on Open Form. So forms in Smartsheet are an easy way to collect data from your audience, whether it's your project teams, project managers, especially if they're not already in Smartsheet as account users. Smartsheet forms are completely public. So an easy way to share that out is just to copy the link, and then you can share it out to your target audience, and they would receive this to collaborate with you in that process. So to show you as an example, we're going to go through and fill out this form. We call it PMO webinar, project category. We'll just say project category 1. I'm going to give myself as a sponsor. We'll let Dave be the manager. And we're going to say the target start date the 2nd, and we'll say it's a month-long project, so 2nd of October. I also have the ability to add any file attachments if there is a requirement to have that project initiated, like a business plan, completely possible. Now, it says your project has been submitted, so we can close this tab and go back to this, close this editor. And if we refresh the page, we should see a row come in here. Now, if this happens and you see a row come in a little bit underneath, it's probably because there has been some information that was loaded in the previous rows. So you can just go ahead and delete those rows. Okay, so we've talked about how to capture information in the project intake. You might not want to share this out to everyone because it might have a lot of sensitive information in here. So a form is a great way to get your audience collaborating in this process without sharing the sheet out. Now, part of the process, part of the intake process is also the ability to have approvals. So we're going for today's purpose, I'm going to fill it in manually, but part of this intake process, there's actually an automation that sits in the back end that kicks off the approval process, right? So we'll take a look at that. If you click on automation and click on manage workflows, you'll see there's a workflow that's already in there. And if you ever needed more workflows, they're over here in the right corner. And if you clicked on see more templates, you would see them. So we'll take a look at the approve new project workflow and what it says at a high level. What it's saying is when a row is added and it's got a project ID. So when a row is added and it's got a project ID, we need to request an approval from the project sponsor and load the response into the project sponsor approval column, which I manually updated just then. And if they've approved it, then the submitter gets that specific response saying your project has been approved, otherwise declined. And the sponsor would really only need to fill out a form which they receive via email. So they wouldn't have to come into Smartsheet. Okay, so that's already in there. All right, so we've gone through the intake process. This is a simple way for you to update, to collect information in the intake and then have it submitted and then potentially approved. And once it's approved, your project is now ready to go live in Smartsheet. So if we take a step back and go back to the previous page, we're now done with the intake. We're now ready to take on the project level. So if we go into the project level folder, you'll see that there's a project template copy for new projects folder in there. Now, because I've loaded a new project in the intake, I'm going to take a copy of this. So the process here is to right click on there and then save as new. I will call it our project name. I think the project was called PMO webinar. And you don't really need to change any of the settings here. It's going to be newly created sheets. And it's saved. What that's going to do for me is now it's going to create a specific toolkit project for this particular project. And in there are going to be specific items just for that project, right? So now you've got a separate project place. So at the start of the process, to start this off, we're going to take a look at the project plan. Then we'll take a look at the metadata and then the few reports and dashboards. Project plan. Let's move this a little bit to the side. Now, this is what an example project plan looks like in Smartsheet. It depends on what kind of template you download. That will depend on the type of columns that you get. But as a project team, you can come directly in here and change any of this information to fit the project that you're implementing. Right? So we'll start from the left-hand side there. You've got a schedule health column. This column is a formula that has a symbol behind it. So it demonstrates that you've got the ability to actually symbolize the health of each task and then have that reported. As a project officer or as a project manager, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in the task name, the status column, and some of the assign to and start date columns. They are completely editable, so you could go directly in here, and I'll make some changes now. So deliver webinar, for example. Next one, follow Q&A, and so forth, right? So it's very easy to go in there and directly load information. You can do the same with the other headings and at the top level as well. So completely editable, and completely, you can add extra rows if you needed to as well. So that's as simple as highlighting on a row, right click on there, and then insert above or insert below. So you're not restricted to what you're seeing there. The next column above and across has a drop down. So Smartsheet has the ability to have just text columns or drop downs or even contact lists, depending on what kind of data you are tracking for that project. If the status in different categories, drop downs are better. But if it's, if you're assigning a task to someone, it's important that you use the contact list column, for example. The automations in Smartsheet will only run really well if the contacts are loaded properly, so they have a recipient, Right, so the next two columns, probably best used by your project managers. They're the ones going to be responsible to load the start and end date of the project, have the plan ready, and then the rest of it will be information around the status of the project and the duration of the project. Okay, so you might look at, so the biggest thing to learn, also understand about this sheet is that the task name column is very different to the rest of it. That's because the task name column, if you right click on the column heading and you edit the column properties, you will notice that you can't actually make any changes to the task name column or the primary column in this section, in this example. This is because the primary column is the only column that contains the hierarchy function. Right, so the hierarchy in project management, I'm able to indent or outdent particular tasks and create a relationship between tasks if I needed to. So just then I've said activity 2 is related to activity follow and QA, and therefore I'm grouped them together, and I have the ability to collapse or expand them. So that's a little bit more advanced project management, but if that's something that is your requirement, that's it's right there. Okay, so the next part of this, I'm going to show you the different views that are available for you to view. What you're currently seeing is a Gantt view, right? So you've got your project information in the left panel and then a Gantt chart on the right-hand side. And at the top left corner, it says Gantt view. Smartsheet is a hybrid project management platform, meaning you are able to see it through the Gantt view, but also you're able to transpose this data to see it a bit more in a Kanban board or something you've seen more in Trello, where you have swim lanes and then your tasks are categorized based on different categories, basically. So I can see that I can categorize it by schedule health. I can see different statuses and potentially even change some of the statuses if needed to, an easy way to do it, or even reassign work, right? So there's a different examples of who's assigned to what, and all of this information will be fed back into the grid view, which is just a spreadsheet view of everything. So initially you might want to start with a spreadsheet view if you're starting from scratch, and then you would go in and add date columns to enable things like Gantt chart and categories to enable things like card view. So let's go back to the Gantt view. Recently, well, not so recently anymore, probably around a year ago, we released a function called baselining, right? So a lot of other project management systems have the ability to baseline, and now Smartsheet allows you to lock in your start and end date and create a baseline. The first thing you need to do to enable that is switch it to Gantt view and then click on baseline, and it will basically take your start and end date and lock it in as a baseline and tell you what the variance is. Okay, so if I hit set, maybe we'll hide some of the columns in the way. Okay, and after I've clicked set, I have a baseline start, baseline finish, and yeah, a variance in that. And if I change any of the start and end dates, it's gonna be reflected in the Gantt chart. Okay, so the next part, I'm going to take you to the right-hand side of the panel. Now that you understand how to load information in the project and customize this to fit your needs, on the right-hand side, you've got further collaborative methods in the system, right? So at the top, you've got conversations. You can have a conversation for each row or the sheet, and then there's other options for all and unread. You've also got the ability to attach files and through Dropbox or upload them from your computer and then work on them together and view them. If we skip past the next view, I want to take your attention straight to the summary section. The summary section is available in every sheet in Smartsheet, so it doesn't have to be a project plan. It could be a register or a log or anything else, a database of any sort. But a summary section, the sheet summary is a place for you to do some analytics regarding what you have in the sheet at a high level without disturbing anything in the sheet, right? So a simple example of that, and it comes with this template set. It's got a count of how many tasks are in each of their status. So at a quick glance, I can see there's 22 not started, 5 in progress, and so forth. And if I wanted to build more analytics, you would simply go ahead and add a new field and type in the formula. So it's a nice place for you to see analytics without disturbing the sheet. All right, so that's what I have to show you around the project plan. We're going to take a step back and go into the project metadata sheet. Now, we're not going to spend too much time in the metadata. I'm just going to cover that the metadata sheet is a place for you to create a sheet to just draw out high-level information of the project, which then can be loaded in the dashboard, right? So if you notice, I just changed the project ID from 4 to 5, and that loaded that PMO webinar project, which would then load a specific dashboard. It's just best practices when you're building systems. If you have more questions around that, just ask in the Q&A and the team will help. So now that we have a project plan, you may in the future also have other sheets in your project toolkit, like risk log or communications log and so forth. You're not limited to the project plan or just the reports on the project plan. You can then go ahead and create reports based on what you need, right? So today we're going to take a look at the project milestone report. Now, how you build a report in Smartsheet is you would right-click in the previous window and just click on Create New Report. And the steps that you need to follow are listed at the top here. So firstly, you would select the source, then the columns and the filters, and then the options of grouping and summarizing are there too. So if we wanted to make a project milestones report, first we'd select the source. I know my sheet is project plan, and I know the sheet is in my template set for project management office. In the project level under the PMO webinar, right? So I know that's selected, but just to let you know, at this point, you could also combine multiple projects. So you're not limited to one sheet per project. So you're able to do a consolidation. The next part of the process is then to display the columns that you would like to see. At the moment, we just need to see a few columns, just what the milestone's called, maybe a status and the start and end date. And then to filter the exact criteria to fulfill the report's requirements. So we definitely want to see the task name is not blank. So we need a task name or milestone name in this case. And then to draw out just the milestones from the project plan, what we need to tell the system is that we need anything that has a duration of 0 days. Because that's what a milestone is, right? It's a point in time, and that is what demonstrates this diamond in your project plan. Okay, so these are the 3 mandatory things that you need to do to compile a report. Now, you can further do grouping, and I'll just touch on this. If I wanted to further group this by status, for example, I would hit OK, and then you will see that this data is split into 2 different statuses, the in progress and started, and I could even do a little bit of summary if I needed to see that. Okay. So now Smartsheet reports, they're bi-directional. That means that you could come into the report and make changes to the data, and that would be reflected back on the sheets. So a benefit there, really, if you think of you updating 4 or 5 sheets at once, you could potentially build a standardized report and then upload those sheets to scale. So I've just changed the status to complete for one of them, and now we've got another group of complete tasks, as you can see. So just before we get off the reports, I'm going to take you to my most favorite function of the report. So we've mentioned to you that a report is a place to consolidate data and filter to your exact needs. Well, Smartsheet Reports also enables you to get that data to the right person at the right time without you constantly going back into the tool. Okay, so if you click on File in the top left corner and click on Send as Attachment, this feature allows you to send this report as an attachment in PDF or Microsoft Excel to your audience, whether it's a group of people or a single person, on a specific cadence where you can set and forget that cadence, and they will receive live reporting from the projects rolling up to the reports, all the way live to the audience. Right, so it's a really nice set and forget full cycle solution there. If you don't want to be sharing that through an attachment, you can also share it by the button at the top right corner. By clicking on this, I can share it to different people. Oops. And then I can specify what permission they can have on this item. I can make Dave an admin or an editor that can or cannot share, or someone who just comments and views the data and has no direct input to the data. Right, so I'll just click on Share Report. All right, so now we've talked about sheets. We've gone through the intake sheet. We've showed you the project plan. I've shown you how reports work. The next part of this demonstration, the most exciting part for most people, is the dashboard. So the PMO template set comes with a project dashboard. For every project, you will have a dashboard, but also there's going to be a portfolio level dashboard, which I'll show you next. So this is what a project level dashboard looks like in Smartsheet. If you are someone who's developing a dashboard, you would basically need to click the edit button at the top right corner, and then the plus sign. That enables you with a whole heap of functions to load more information on this dashboard. So just starting at the top left corner, this is a metric function. As you can see in the top right, there's a metric button. We have a wide variety of different charts, and we continue to add different charts on here, which is accessible by that chart function. A Smartsheet dashboard doesn't just have to be a place for analytics, but also a portal or a quick links page. So it's nice to give your project managers a project plan, link, or or key risks or overdue milestones and stuff like that, easily accessible via the dashboard. But also a nice place to have your high-level reports, which is the next function down, to see everything all in the one place rather than multiple links. The next few functions are just around illustrations and having text and titles, but there is one here around web content that allows you to embed external dashboards or external videos, content from the web directly into Smartsheet, further allowing integration between your two tools. All right, so let's get past the widgets and cancel. Just like the reports, you have the ability to share this. It's going to be quite important that dashboard to share to the right audience, so then they can consume the right information. Now, if your user doesn't have a Smartsheet account, or if you need to get this dashboard in front of an executive team who won't be going into Smartsheet, that's completely fine. All you really need to do is go into the top left corner, click on File, and you can publish a dashboard. You can also publish a report or a sheet. It's the exact same process. Click on Publish, and then you've got a switch that says Read Only Full. Turn that on, and at the moment it says only available to users in my account, in my Smartsheet account. I can switch this to anyone with a link. So maybe the executive team doesn't have a Smartsheet account, and then I can take this link and pass that on to them. So and then you can preview it too. And this is a live link of your published data, right? So they don't have to go into Smartsheet. They can just view this link. It's a view only. Then that your project managers can see that project level information, or the executive team. All right, so now we've gone through how to create a sheet, how to load a sheet, a report, and a dashboard. That summarizes the project level information. So let's take a step back and go back to the high level. Gone through the intake, we've gone through the projects. The next part of the demonstration is to go through the portfolio. The portfolio level folder is a place where you're going to have all portfolio level information collated in the one place for reporting in reports and dashboards. And it starts with the portfolio metrics. The portfolio metrics is a lot like the metadata sheet. this metric sheet is where it's completely editable. So if you have more data or more metrics that you need to track and report at an executive level, different types of risks or different categories, you could go ahead and add those variables in here, and then take some of these formulas to further load that data to load into the dashboard. So all of this is just formulas that is counting based off different criteria, and our syntax, our formula syntax is very similar to Excel. So yeah, you can use that. So that's the metric sheet. It's also got a couple of reports in there. So it's going to count how many active projects there are, and this is pulling from the intake. But the main thing in this folder is the PMO level dashboard. Okay, so the PMO level dashboard is a summary of all the projects that are loaded in the project space. At the moment, it says there's a category 3 project. There are 2 projects that are loaded, but one of them have only been activated and linked back to the intake. And this gives you a high-level summary of all the projects in your environment. Now, it's important to notice that in Smartsheet, you can have multiple levels. So if you have a bigger structure than what we went through before of, you might have projects, and then you might have something in the middle of programs, and that rolls up to portfolio, you would still follow the same kind of thinking where you would create a new folder and then have summaries at that project or program level. Okay, and that summarizes the webinar in terms of the PMO workspace. If you have any more questions, just please reach out in the Q&A and we can come back with more information. But just to summarize, the template set is accessible in the Solution Center on the top bottom, on the left-hand side of the screen. You can type in PMO, or you can even type in project and see a whole heap of different project works. You may need different templates, and they're downloadable by anyone with a license, but a non-licensed user can still view them and edit data. That's it. Hand it back over to Dave.
Well, thanks, Arnie. So I hope that was really informative, and we had quite a lot of questions coming in through the Q&A and through the chat as well. So thanks for that, and keep them coming. And Aaron and Sherry have been super busy answering all your questions as well. So we appreciate that as well. So now we do want to, transition, and we'll do a quick poll. And this poll is being launched right now, but we essentially want to know what, out of what you saw just then, what are some of the key features that you'd like to use, and what are some of the help resources that are out there as well. So we'll just give a tiny bit of time for people to submit their responses. Okay. Great. Responses are flowing through now, so thank you. And we haven't finished our webinar just yet. We still will go into some time for Q&A and also some live Q&A as well. So please do stick around. Great. Maybe we'll just keep the poll open and close it in a few seconds. All right. So we're now going to cover a bit of live Q&A, and we're going to act it out as me as the host, and Arnie will be our professional, and he's going to explain the answers to us. So Arnie, just to kick things off, what in terms of exporting, what are some of the exporting options for reports, especially if we want to output a Gantt chart?
A Gantt chart for reports, no problem. So to demonstrate this, I'm going to take you to the PMO webinar toolkit we've just created, and we're going to use the project milestone report that we just had, because this has a Gantt chart in there as well. And the question was to export a report with the Gantt chart. So I'll go ahead and remove the groupings. We don't need them. All right, and the summary can go as well. And here's a simple example of how to export with the Gantt chart. So on the top left corner, you've got the file option. And then if you were to click on export, there's the ability to export or print. You can export into Excel, but the question was for the PDF. So click on PDF. You have the ability to set your preferences here for your orientation of the sheet. But also a cool thing here is to ensure that you've got enough columns or the right columns, right? So you might not want to show everything. I just might want to show the task name and the status. And I can see it in the Gantt chart what the start and end date is. And if I click OK, an item is downloaded for me. And as you can see, it's got my task name, status, and my Gantt view for that particular report.
That's awesome. Thanks, Ani. And maybe as a bit of a follow-up, when would you want to pull out reports, through a PDF as opposed to keep that information in Smartsheet?
Sure. So a lot of the times you might need to store this information in another software for auditing purposes or for records management. And a lot of these systems may require that to be in PDF. That's a quick and easy way to do it if you need that kind of setup. So it's to store that information mainly for auditing purposes or records management purposes.
Great, thanks. And as part of our regos, we actually asked you to submit some questions. So we've selected a couple that came out across some recurring themes as well. So these are those questions. So our second one is for sheets. What's the difference between the project meta sheet and a normal sheet?
No problem. So the project metadata is also just it's a sheet that consists of generally information that needs to link between your project components, whether that's a risk log, a plan, different project management items for that project, a way to bring it all in the sheet for analytics, which then can be simply used to build dashboards. Now, project metadata sheets was something that Smartsheet used to use a lot prior to having the sheet summary section, which I showed you in the project plan. So an alternative method for the project metadata is to create your sheet summary and then draw that information out for reporting purposes. But to answer that at a high level, it's a sheet for you to consolidate information, project level information for reporting purposes.
Awesome. And we also had a question around forms as well. Can you link a form in response to a previous row in an associated sheet? And I think what that means is, can we edit our submissions once they've been submitted?
Sure. Okay. So if we take a step back to the project intake, this is probably the best place to show this as an example. The question was, what happens when data is already submitted, but data needs to be updated via a form without going into the sheet? Well, Smartsheet has a cool automation called update request, right? So it's going to request an update from a specific user. We'll just make sure I'm in here. Hit save. The best way to do that is if you wanted to do it for one row, you would select that row, toggle towards the right-hand side of the screen, and there is an update request, which is the circle and the tick button. Click on that. I could create a new request, say for myself, for example. And then I could say, please update my online sheet. In here, I could include exactly what I want the audience to see or the respondent to see. Maybe I don't want them to see everything and I only want them to edit some of the things. So you can preset that. And remember that whatever information, whatever that you're presenting to them, it's going to have pre-filled information. So if you don't want that change, you might not want to show that column. And then you would simply hit send or send now if you needed to. That would then send an email, in this case to myself, or a notification in here for me to update that particular row.
And I guess a follow-up. I guess a follow-up to that would be, like, what kind of situation would we need to send an update request as well? Yeah.
So if you're doing some sort of inventory management, or if you're doing a process that requires more updates as you're going through multiple gates, that's a very good example where you might need continuous information for a particular line item or an invoice and so forth. Update requests are also useful for people that that don't really spend a lot of time in Smartsheet and can get away with using forms to update their information.
Awesome, awesome. In a few moments, we will ask you if you have any live questions. And for those who are brave enough and you wanted to ask Ani a question live, if you could raise your hand using one of the icons in the middle of your screen there. If you raise your hand, we'll then ask to unmute you, and then you can ask away. So we have a question from Naya. So Naya, please go ahead, unmute yourself.
Hey, Dave and Annie, thank you so much for the informative session. I have a question regarding dashboard. When we have multiple systems integration in a single project plan, but I need to show out of say 6 systems, I just need to show a dashboard of 3 systems. Can I use the link link the sheet with the separate system and then publish a dashboard? Is it possible?
Yeah. So once you create, say, maybe one or many sheets, you can create one or many sheets, maybe one per system. You would then load that information at each sheet level. After that, you can create specific reports based off maybe each system, and then load that in one dashboard. So it takes you back to that pyramid that I showed you initially. Got to make sure that there's data in the sheets, which then can be reported via the reports and then placed on the dashboards.
Thank you so much.
Great, thanks for this question now. Lima, we also have a question from you.
Hi, hello. Thank you for your great explanation and demonstration. Actually, I have one query. Already, we have a workflow to automate under the automation to move the closed record to the archive file. So we have an archive sheet, and earlier it was transferring the flow. What I have written. Okay, let me tell the flow what I have written here.
Was it a move row function, did you say?
Yeah, I'm using like when archive, that is, I have a field called archive. So when archive checked, so the conditions also we have to check another column also. So I have put the value of one of the value like no action, results updated, inactive or unpaid. So those 3 columns value move rows to archive sheet.
Sure.
And now when I'm doing this one, first initially the owner of the sheet was different person, and once he left, he handed over, and I made sure the sheet owner is myself. Now the error is changed. Okay, that error has gone once I changed my ownership from the earlier person to my name. But even after that, when I go to the sheet and save and close after doing the checkbox and save and close, that still that same data is on the original sheet. It is not moved to the archive sheet.
Right. Okay. I mean, most likely we're going to need to take a personal look at this situation. But just to help out with some frequently asked questions around this, we've got to make sure that the right person is the owner of both sheets, and then the automation is linking to the right criteria. If you're still seeing some errors, there could be a small bug in the system, and I encourage you to go to Google or go to help.smartsheet.com and contact support. That's the fastest way to get help with bugs and errors like that. But maybe we can catch up one-on-one regarding that question.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thanks for your question, Lima. And I actually had a question around the project plan. So there was something that came up through the Q&A, and I'll just read it out. I have an existing project plan on Microsoft Projects or some other tool. How can I convert this into Smartsheet? What's some of the best practices there, Ani?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So I'll start with Microsoft Project, right? So we actually have the ability to import directly from Excel, Project, Sheets, and Trello. These are pretty seamless integrations and quite nice to use. If you have a tool that's outside of these, there are multiple methods. If you need a live integration, we have premium apps that solve that use case. So specifically a tool called Data Shuttle that allows you to integrate 2 systems together. Otherwise, you might find native integrations with the tool already in here in the Solution Center, but it depends. It depends. If you're integrating from MS Project, it's already in there. Otherwise, we have premium products that enable that kind of integration.
Great. Awesome. And it does look like we have another question from Ren. So Ren, if you'd like to put yourself on unmute.
Hi there. Thank you guys for the webinar. I'm quite a beginner in this, but in my job, I need to create a lot of checklists with clients submitting specific documents during a certain timeline. And what I wanted to know is, in this project plan, can you insert forms that at certain times they can upload documents if they are non-licensed users?
Right. So just to clarify that, is that so internal staff needs to update documents for a particular task? Is that correct?
So our clients would be non-licensed users, and they need to send us documents depending on our projects that we're doing for them. So we have a venue, and they need to send like site maps or something from an event they want to do. That's just an example. And I wanted to know, could they upload, could Smartsheet send out a form automatically at a certain time when they need to upload those documents?
Yeah, absolutely. If you wanted to collaborate with external collaborators within the sheet, you could actually have them tagged in Smartsheet, and then the Smartsheet system will send them an automation. Alternatively, we have a tool called Dynamic View that allows you to, or streamlines the process between multiple stakeholders without giving them access to the project plan, right? So they can then see a particular line item that they need to update or add an attachment for. So that's available through Dynamic View. Otherwise, if you needed them to feed data within the sheet, you would need to share them to the sheet, have them as a user, whether they can be a free user, maybe they can be in a group as well. And that's a lot easier to manage. So it depends on what kind of access they get with the system. Okay, great. So they can, for instance, upload a PDF and onto Smartsheets, or would they need to mail that? No, they can upload it directly onto Smartsheet. So, for example, they can click on that row and then attachment button top right corner.
Okay. Oh, great. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Ren. And maybe we have a last and final question from Mohammed. So maybe we'll do that and then wrap things up, Arnie.
Sure.
Hi. So can you just show us how to link the separate sheets with the dashboard?
How to link with the dashboard?
Yeah.
So did you mean how to create a widget with information from the sheet?
Yeah.
Okay. So first, you would need to have a sheet ready with the data. Depending on what you need to link to the dashboard. In this case, I'm just going to show you how to link some of the data within the project metadata sheet into the dashboard. So you go into the dashboard. This is for licensed users only, by the way. Top right corner, you hit the pencil sign and then add widgets. And to keep it simple, I'm just going to add a metric, for example. When I click on metric, a square pops up in the bottom left corner. I then need to add data. So if I then source the sheet that I need to add data from, it's in my demos. I'm just going to go into PMO webinar metadata. Grid data it is as well. So you see how you can choose from different types of data, the sheet summary section or the grid data. And let's just say, I'm just going to select these four cells and hit OK. And then that information is populated in that widget. You have further ability to customize it, whether you want to take action, open another data source and click. Yeah, that's how you add data to a widget or on your dashboard, and then it's saved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Is that the end of the Q&A, Dave?
Yep, that's it, Arnie.
Sounds good. Well, look, thank you for that. Thanks everyone who's attended today. That wraps up our first APAC webinar series. We hope you found it useful and informative. Our plan is to continue this series more regularly, and we'd love to hear your ideas, your feedbacks on topics, themes, questions. I think we had a lot of great questions today. It could be around template sets or even premium maps. So take your time and let us know. We'll be sending a recording of this session and short post-event surveys. So just keep an eye on that. It helps us improve our demos. And that's it. Please stick around. If you've got any more questions, we'll stick around for another 5-10 minutes if you want to chat one-on-one. Thank you for coming. See you next time.